Shuffle today. Week 1 done in the books. Let's just say it was a
Oh,
little wild, a little crazy, a little wacky, a little my picks for dog crap, and I'm flying Ryan Gokers along with as always.
can't put motor mouth Joel Verlin. How about them Cowboys? Oh boy.
Yeah, possibly the worst week 1 goes to the Dallas Cowboys. Not only do they lose, not really have anything going
Injury
on.
added to insult. They now have to fall back on the services of one Cooper Rush because
Yeah.
you have the guy that just got the boatload of money gets injured. Okie dokie.
Yeah. Now that being said, Dak Prescott out at least 4 weeks. I would say. I think I've seen 6 to 8, but Jerry Jones thinks he could come back within
Yeah, 'cause
4 because, well, that's Jerry for you.
that's the whole
Um,
thing. They're not putting him on IR because
yeah.
they're thinking he'll be back.
Now here's the thing. This is the same injury Russell Wilson had last year, or very similar to it. He came back early, was not good, and he's now on the Broncos. We'll get to we'll get to where
Yeah,
why I'm wearing a Seahawks jersey here in a little bit because most impressive team in Week 1 for me had to be the Seahawks, Joel.
well, yeah, because when you're dealing with the Broncos, you're kind of going.
Yeah, we all had that Peyton Manning. Got to get one here. Come on, got to get one. Take a time out. Let's talk about this. Come on, got to get one. We'll get to that and the rest of the games here shortly. So just some news and notes. For one,
Yeah,
how did
Shannon Sharp was very entertaining on the couple of
yes.
clips I saw of him. I'm going get sort of a different side of him that you don't usually see.
Yes, the full clip of Peyton and Eli's ESPN Monday Night Football coverage. They did have Shannon Sharp on at the time of the play. Is available on YouTube. So if you did not see it, have not heard about it, go take a look.
You gotta like the one where he's talking about, if the game goes to overtime, I might down this entire bottle, and then he holds up the freaking.
Yeah. So Joe, how did your week of fantasy go though? Overall,
Fantasy was kind of mixed. I think I ended up having 2 dubs and 1 wah.
well, I was 11-2 this week. One of those losses was 185 points put up and outscored. So I had a pretty good week. I will say so myself. Megla Bowl and the Dynasty League where I lost actually got the bonus win for beating the league meeting. So technically 13-2 so far. So not bad. I'm excited for week 1. The results I had. Joel, you won in the 16 teamer or the 10? I know you only won in one of the two.
I am. Oh, that would definitely be not the 16 teamer
Okay,
since I am 0-1. That would actually be the 10 teamer that I ended up winning in.
Got you. Yes, I won in both of those. That's going to be a good league. Both of those are going to be good leagues. But early on, very happy with how the fantasy season has started for me. So let's go into some of the major injuries from this weekend. We'll start with Elijah Mitchell for the San Francisco 49ers, expected to miss 2 months with a sprained knee. As a running back, you kind of need your knee, so we will not see him for an extended period of time. Jeff Wilson, possibly next man up.
And one of the injuries that one just has to wonder, Flyin, why they even started Chris Godwin, who of course suffered a hamstring strain Sunday night and will likely miss some time. Per sources, there's optimism it's not a major injury, but Godwin could still be sidelined a few weeks. But given the fact he was already recouping, given the fact of the timetable that was given, my one question has to be, I know it's prime time. I know it's against Dallas. I know it's a big time game. Why start him?
Let's start with the good news on Chris Godwin. It wasn't the knee. The knee was the injury that he was coming back from, the torn ACL. When he went up lame, I said, oh no, he went too hard. He pulled it. Fortunately, it's a hamstring. It is not affiliated with a knee injury. This is a separate thing. It's just a hamstring sprain or strain or whatever muscle spasm caused problem. It is not a long-term setback to the knee. So that's the good news. The bad news is he was out there playing pretty decently, actually. Kind of had an awkward catch and turn that caused the hamstring to have a problem. Likely going to miss some time, but optimism, it's not a major injury. It looks like probably 2 to 4 weeks. Hamstrings can be tricky, so let him heal up all the way is what I would say there. Speaking of hamstring injuries, Keenan Allen, also with a hamstring injury, also already ruled out for tomorrow night's Thursday night game between the Chiefs and the Chargers that we'll get to here in a little bit. But that one, he was having a pretty good game, and then all of a sudden he was out, he was hurt, and then it was just, oh, Mike Williams is getting, no, it's not Mike Williams who's going to get involved. It was some guy you've probably never heard of getting involved, because unfortunately for us, it was nobody on your fantasy radar. It was DeAndre Carter who got all the passing work in that game. We'll get to the game breakdowns here in just a little bit, but those are some of the big injuries from this week. And of course, the Dak Prescott injury, very severe, very significant. It probably ruins the Cowboys season, as they are the only team in that division to come out of week one winless. And now they've come out of week one starting quarterbackless. So yeah, Dallas, we were down on CeeDee Lamb, or I was down on CeeDee Lamb all off season long. And sure looks like that's going to pay off dividends with how bad Cooper Rush is going to be.
Yeah, because with whole CD Lamb, they had the Cowboys EVP Steven Joseph, who was on 105.3 The Fan regarding teams' play at wide receiver, said, quote, "We certainly have got to step up and do better. We've got to be there. CD has got to improve and work his way into being the number one receiver we think we can."
Yeah, he wasn't bad. It was just that whole offense seemed out of whack. And they had a bunch of rookie receivers that were not their normal. No Michael Gallup. They didn't have Jalen Tolbert. Zeke Elliott looked very good in limited work. Tony Pollard, not so much. And unfortunately, I think the Cowboys are going to be in really, really rough shape the rest of the way. But it's still early. There's still 16 more games for every team in the regular season. So if you looked really, really bad in week one and had high expectations, a la the Green Bay Packers, or if you looked really, really good with low expectations, a la the Houston Texans.
Most kickers this week, oh boy.
Yeah, most kickers look bad. So yeah, don't get too high, don't get too low after week one, because there are plenty of games left to right the ship. So let's start with the breakdown of the last week. Week one started with the Bills 31-10 win over the Rams. We've covered that last week. We're not going to go too far into that. But if you have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, or Gabe Davis, you are very, very happy, as well as Cooper Kupp. Now to Sunday, the Falcons. The Falcons going to Falcon. Up 26-10, lose this one 27-26 on the last second field goal. Risen from the ashes is Michael Thomas, 2 touchdowns, 57 yards receiving in those 2 scores, leading the team back with Jameis Winston. Alvin Kamara came out with a weird hip injury, I believe it was, but nothing too serious to look out for. Marcus Mariota actually played pretty well. Kyle Pitts, a disappointment. Cordero Patterson, a huge fantasy week. So Chris Olave looked pretty good. Taysom Hill as a running back, what? Had, I think, 80 yards rushing and a touchdown. It was absurd. Saints go to 1-0. They face the Bucs in week number 2 for first place in that division. The Falcons, again, blow a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter because, Atlanta. I mean, do you have to have a better reason than that? I think that's just kind of how it is. Next game, first revenge game, did not go to plan for one Baker Mayfield. Browns 26, Panthers 24. Browns got off to a nice early lead. Chubb and Kareem Hunt looked fantastic in week number 1. Not much passing work to speak of for the Browns. For the Panthers, Baker Mayfield rushing touchdown. Baker Mayfield 75-yard touchdown pass to Robbie Anderson. The big highlights of this game. Christian McCaffrey, a little bit disappointing, was not used as heavily as you might want. Any thoughts on this one, Joel?
Yeah, just the curious with this one was interesting thing pointed out from Brinson. Rule 8, Section 2, Article 1, Item 4 of the NFL rulebook pretty clearly states you cannot fake spike, then actually spike. The Panthers got hosed pretty badly with that call.
Yeah, it's that goes back to the Dan Marino play, but Browns winning on the last second field goal. The Panthers did come back, have a lead, and then a little bit unlucky there at the end. Then things got weird. I mean, the Browns and Panthers, both bad teams. We both picked the Panthers, but the Browns winning, not a huge surprise. Next one was in an absolute monsoon in Chicago. The Bears winning 19-10.
You saw the
Trey
highlights
Lance,
of them all just sliding on the field.
yeah, that was the highlight of the game. Is after they'd done the kneel downs, they did a slip and slide in the end zone in front of their fans. This was soaking wet. There was a penalty where they tried to dry the field for a field goal.
only the Bears can get a penalty for drying the freaking field.
Well, what it is, it goes back to, I believe, the snowblower incident with the Patriots, where they brought a snowblower out to clear a spot for a field goal. And it was if you want to kick the snow out of the way, you do you. But to bring something off the sideline or a piece of equipment onto the field to manipulate the field, that's where it's a penalty. But the Bears 19-10. David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert were decent. Deebo Samuel, really the only one of note for the 49ers. Again, Elijah Mitchell is out. He was actually having a pretty good game. I think you throw this one out for the fantasy reputation of these players because it was an absolute monsoon. The Bears 19-10 win. They play the Packers and current Bears owner Aaron Rodgers next week on Sunday Night Football. So that 1-0 start is going to be tested very early on. Any thoughts on either of these teams? This was just such a wacky, weird scenario for this game with the monsoon in Chicago.
With how the weather was, I think for both teams, you just kind of throw the game out. It's just you can't really, for the winner, for the victor. It was a horrible, horrible mess.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't see another game like that for a little while. If hopefully not again this season, because I remember there was a Pittsburgh Miami game that was even wetter than that. It was 3-0. There was a punt that embedded into the earth when it came down because it was just so wet. Games like that, they're not fun to play and they're not fun to watch.
Yeah, the games like this reminds me of the late time season where I forget which year it was, but it was one of those years that Tom Brady was just absolutely killing it as a Patriot, was just absolutely blowing apart all the other teams. And I was just absolutely riding the wave until that time in the playoffs when they ran into similar weather. And I was just like, okay, what do you mean Tom Brady only has 160 yards and no touchdown? WTF. But it's just that kind of general weather can just absolutely trash any team.
Yeah, Tom Brady ended up being pretty good outside of that. So, yeah, throw the game out. If you are one of those people that said Trey Lance is going to be great, don't give up after week one. Maybe start looking to the waivers, maybe stash one just in case, but don't throw him to the wolves quite yet. It's one game and it was in horrific conditions. All right, next game.
Don't trade him for Geno Smith.
No, but Geno looked really good. Next game, the Bengals tried to lose this, and they did. Pittsburgh 23-20. They were all over the Bengals early. Joe Burrow 5 turnovers in this game, 4 picks and a fumble. The Steelers were a +5 in the turnover margin, which when you have that many, it shouldn't be a close game. It should be an easy win. But the Bengals did claw their way back. Get this to 20-20. Pittsburgh blocks an extra point. And then they win it in overtime and a long field goal at the gun. Najee Harris came out of this game with a foot injury late.
Seems
to be fine.
Injuries.
Yeah, seems to be fine. Expects to play this week. Less positive news, though, is TJ Watt, pass rusher extraordinaire. Looks like a torn pec. I haven't seen confirmation. Could be season ending at least 6 weeks, possibly, though, the whole year.
Scary time also for T. Higgins as well.
T. Higgins out with a concussion, hopefully not more than 1 week for him. It's possible he can get back in a week, but concussions are kind of tough to be less than a week. Deontay Johnson, decent, not exceptional. Jamar Chase is very, very good at football, though. He had a couple of touchdowns, or at least one touchdown, one very close to second touchdown. Joe Mixon, a little bit disappointing, but solid in this matchup. But the Steelers behind Mitch Trubisky, 1-0. Tomlin says he's going to start all season. You start 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. All of a sudden, you've got too much of a role. You can't bench him for the rookie. So Trubisky, not inspiring by any stretch of the imagination, not fantasy relevant, but got the job done on the field. Also, Pittsburgh defense, a pick 6 of Joe Burrow, facing a New England Patriots team with Mac Jones and possible back spasms. So could be a fantasy pickup option for next week
It's
if you
also
have
definitely
defense.
disturbing once again to see how many times Burrow was sacked.
Yeah, and that's with an improved offensive line. They did work to make that offensive line better, and it doesn't seem to be paying dividends. Again, week 1. Don't panic if you're a Bengals fan. If you think of Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd actually had a pretty good game here. If you think any of those guys are going to be fantasy relevant, do not give up on them after week 1. Of course, this is a lot of these teams didn't play in the preseason. Those guys sat the bench. They maybe got a few drives, but that's about it. So don't panic. Don't panic. I'm going to give you a preview of my final thought. Don't panic in fantasy. It's only week number 1. Next up, Eagles 38, Lions 35, highest scoring game of the week. I did take the Lions in this one, and it was a fairly interesting game. DeAndre Swift was exceptional in this game. Let me get all the details of this one because there were so many just very good players in this game. We got to call out some of the stats here. But Eagles 38, Lions 35. Let's start with no stats currently available. Thank you, NFL.com. You are such a great piece of equipment.
Hashtag technology.
Yeah, I'm like, let me go into this game. I'll check the stats, get the numbers, hit the stats. There are currently no stats available. Please check later. How about you screw yourself, NFL.com?
We'll start off with how about quarterback Jalen Hurts, 1832, 243 yards, 17 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown. So you're talking about all of that yardage plus a touchdown. Has to be a pretty damn good fantasy day.
Yeah, 15 points rushing for Jalen Hurts, 90 and a touchdown, plus all the air yards, 243. That's a very solid game. Miles Sanders, 13 carries for 96 yards, a 7.4 average, and for the first time since the 2020 season, a touchdown for Miles Sanders. He went goose egg last year, on the board early this year.
Almost a full buck, 4 yards short of a buck.
Yeah. Kenneth Gainwell, 5 for 20 and a touchdown. Boston Scott, 4 for 10 and a touchdown. So 4 rushing touchdowns, all to 4 different people. You're going to see this, but if they can keep this offense high flying, high scoring, and Miles Sanders should be a pretty good fantasy option.
How about the fact that the Eagles have 4 players with rushing touchdown Sunday? First time they've done that since 1961.
Yeah, don't expect 4 every week from 4 different guys, but that shows you that there are going to be weeks that Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders might not get those touchdowns. It could fall to Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell. Oh, by the way, they still have Dallas Goedert, 3 for 60, and the new acquisition of A.J. Brown. 10 catches, 155 yards, no touchdowns, but 155 of the 243 total passing yards to A.J. Brown. It looks like a 2-man show there. Devontae Smith, 4 targets, no catches. As we go to the Lions
side. Dallas Goedert did have a 22-yard pickup on a TE screen. So
yeah, he had a pretty good game for the tight end spot. There weren't a lot of good tight ends this week. For the Lions, Jared Goff, 215, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Again, not inspiring, but not too bad. DeAndre Swift, we said Miles Sanders 7.4 was good. DeAndre Swift's 9.6 average was even better. 15 carries, 144 yards, and a touchdown. He is a must play every week in fantasy.
144 yards on the ground, 31 yards in the air, not too shabby.
And by the way, Jamal Williams snaked 2 touchdowns inside the 5. This could have been a massive game for DeAndre Swift. 11 carries, 28 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Jamal Williams. He's a trendy name on waivers. Deeper leagues, you probably want to pick him up because of that goal line upside, but 10-team leagues, I think that's a little too volatile for my blood. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 for 64 and a touchdown. And Joel's favorite player, DJ Chark, 5 for 52 and a touchdown. Looks like he might have a good role there. Hawkinson, again, no good tight ends this week. 4 for 38, was on the better end of tight ends. Sadly, he was still on the better end of tight ends.
He got the targets. It's just didn't do too much with them.
Yeah, he was not a stat machine, but he was fine. I mean, he was tight end 22 in non-PPR, but hey, it was again a bad week for tight ends. If your name wasn't Travis Kelce or OJ Howard or any of the other guys that you weren't playing Taysom Hill, it was a pretty garbage week for fantasy tight ends. And then we are already on the board with a freaking tie. Can I change my Super Bowl pick? Is it too early, too late to do that? Because this team looked bad and the other team looked even worse. Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans tie at 20. The Texans did do a Falcons. They had a 20-3 lead, blew it. Rodrigo Blankenship has now been cut from the Indianapolis Colts because they frankly should have won this game in overtime, and he was too bad, kicked some kicks out of bounds on the kickoff, missed some field goals, and it ends up in a tie. The big story here, Michael Pittman is an absolute unit. He is an absolute machine. He is very, very good at football. Right now, wide receiver, I think he's number 8 in non-PPR league. I'd have to check his PPR standing. He was very good this week.
Because Matt Ryan had definitely, I think the thing was maybe not touchdowns, but definitely yards, 352 yards, only one interception, and of course the Fumbleia and the Fumblerooski.
Yeah.
But not too bad a day at all. The yards definitely helped.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, still very, very good. Brandon Cooks was all right. The Dameon Pierce experience, a little underwhelming because Rex Burkhead got a lot of work in this game. He was the better running back. So don't throw Dameon Pierce to the Wolves yet. He is a rookie in his first game. I think there's room for growth, and I think in time Rex Burkhead will be supplanted fully. But right now, Rex Burkhead seems to be the guy.
And as far as quarterbacks go, on the other flip side of the coin, David Mills. Yeah, I mean, if you started him in week 1, you can't complain at all.
He outscored Aaron Rodgers this week because I have both of them on my 16-teamer. I was lucky enough to get a win with Aaron Rodgers, but I would have been home free before Monday night if I'd have played Davis Mills over him. Not that that's the right play most of the time, but this week it would have been. So the first tie of the season, these two teams are also tied for first place in the division at 0-1 because of, we'll get to the other two games here in a little bit. Patriots look real bad. I'm going to say that now. The Dolphins 20-7 win. Defensive score, that the defense for the Dolphins looked outstanding. They looked like a fantasy defense you could probably hold outside of the weeks they're playing Buffalo.
One of the best touchdowns of the week easily had to be to Waddle. Just boom.
The best part about that play, because that was the game, because as a Dolphins fan, that's the game I watch end to end. The announcer before that play, it was a 4th and 7. He goes, "Oh, I don't like how this looks." Passes in stride into triple coverage, beats 3 guys with the pass for a 40-something yard touchdown. And the other commentators, looked pretty good to me, bud. And it's like, oh, yeah, that was a bad call. That doesn't look good. Not everybody can be Tony Romo calling the shots. But yeah, 20-7 win.
That call was just a bit outside.
Jalen Waddle, solid. Tyreek Hill, solid. Chase Edmonds in PPR was okay. Outside of that, really nothing to speak of fantasy-wise for either side. Damian Harris looked decent, but that Patriots offense looked real bad. Jacoby Myers, I will say, his stat line wasn't as good as you would hope, but Jacoby Myers looked fantastic this week. He is their number 1 receiver still. Devontae Parker was not really in the play.
Patriots need some kind of gate because they need help.
Now, in the Patriots defense, the Dolphins have a top 5 defense. They do. Mac Jones without weapons. Let's see how they react next week. I think they got an easier matchup next week. Who do they play next week? Let's see. New England plays Pittsburgh. So, no, they don't have an easier matchup next week. I'm sorry. New England. You're going to lose again. But Tyreek Hill, very, very good. Looks like a good acquisition so far. And only time will tell. This Dolphins team plays Baltimore last week. They actually manhandled them last year. Baltimore looked very good in the game we'll get to next, at least in the second half. So that should be a good early measuring stick game for the Dolphins in Buffalo in week 3. So we're going to find out about the Dolphins, and it's Cincinnati in week 4. They start with a pretty brutal start to the season. Dolphins 1-0 to start, 20-7, pretty much just a solid all-around performance. Nothing spectacular on offense, but you saw flashes with Tyreek and Waddle, and Chase Edmonds will be better against a lesser defense. All right, next up, it's Baltimore and the New York Jets. Baltimore 24-9 winners in this one, but it was tight the whole way. Lamar Jackson came through in the end. Devin Duvernay, 2 touchdowns. Rashard Bateman with a touchdown. Receiving Mark Andrews, not a great week. Don't panic.
You didn't have the Joe Flacco revenge game.
Yeah, no revenge for Joe Flacco. In fact, no revenge in any of the revenge games. That was a little surprising. The Jets did use Michael Carter more than Breece Hall, but they both got play. Michael Carter was actually solid. Breece Hall was decent. But yeah, just not a good time for the Jets. The Jets are going to be a very bad team. Maybe they'll be a little more hopeful when they get.
Kenyon Drake didn't exactly light up fantasy with only 31 yards on the ground and 15 yards in the air. Definitely a one day. And then you had Mike Davis and
he's bad.
Just not even on the radar.
Good news for the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins did practice in full today. Looks to be on the way back for next week's game against the Dolphins. So welcome back. You're going to face a very tough defense. Anyways, Ravens, again, they play the Dolphins next week, 1-0. Jacksonville and the Commanders. And man, this one, I thought I had this pick nailed. The Jaguars were up. Then the Commanders, Carson Wentz looked very, very good. Terry McLaurin and Johan Dotson scoring 2 touchdowns for Dotson.
One of the more surprising and highest scoring games of the day. Yeah.
James Robinson looked very good coming back from the Achilles injury. Christian Kirk had some good runs. So a lot of, decent fantasy options in this game. But the Commanders get it done late. They win this game against the Jaguars 28-22. Jacksonville looked a lot better, though. I will say this. Jacksonville looked like a team that has gotten rid of Urban Meyer and moved past it. And that is the thing we were hoping to see. Hopefully this loss doesn't demoralize the team, put them in a rut, because they did play very, very well. But the Commanders just get it done late and pull out this win.
Yeah, just wide receiver and tight end. When you're looking at the one side of that, well, you had Christian Kirk, who did good as far as yardage goes, but Jones and Jones Jr., not so much.
Yeah. All right, next up, another upset. This was why it was such a tough week. We had games like this. Giants 21, Titans 20. Derrick Henry, no touchdowns, about 85 yards, so nothing spectacular from him. But again, it's week 1. Don't panic. Saquon Barkley, running back 1 on the week. That is one of the bigger stories of this week. And then, of course, the 2-point conversion call by Brian Daboll to win this game very, very late instead of going to overtime. So the Giants win, and they are above 500 for the first time in 5 years.
You've seen the locker room footage of Daboll pumping up the team. And you're like, okay, maybe it is a different culture finally for the team.
I mean, he's coming from a winning culture in Buffalo that he was a part of building. Maybe he can do that again in New York. The Giants do go to 1-0. We'll see how long these good feelings last. But Saquon Barkley looks like one of the early steals of the fantasy football draft season. Right now, running back 1 on the year. Again, it's week 1. Don't panic if you have Saquon.
Decent yards in the air for Barkley, and especially on the ground. And most importantly for fantasy, the touchdown that puts the icing on the cake.
Yeah, don't celebrate too much if you have Barkley. You got a good deal. Don't try and trade high. See where this goes. He could be back to his 2018, 2019 self where he was just dominant. Speaking of dominant, Pat Mahomes is still a pretty decent football player, I would say. 5 touchdowns for Pat Mahomes. 2 of those going to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had one of his best fantasy days.
Tyreek Hill. Who needs Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, Mecole Hardman got involved. Juju got involved. MVS got involved. Sky Moore everybody was involved. Isaiah Pacheco led the team.
Absolutely got freaking buried.
Yeah, the Cardinals, that defense is not. There's some injuries, and that's a part of it, but that defense could not handle the Chiefs. The Chiefs will be facing a tougher test tomorrow night against the Chargers, who will be picking here in a little bit. But the Chiefs looked every bit as dominant on offense as they did at their peak. And that should scare people, especially with the Broncos are coming up. The Raiders got better. The Chargers got better. The Chiefs lost Tyreek. They got worse. They came out and put on a statement this week, just beating down the Arizona Cardinals. So Pretty much anything on the Chiefs. Travis Kelce was absurd. Pretty much anything on the Chiefs is a fantasy viable option right now. Let's just go there. For the Cardinals, Hollywood Brown was decent. Zach Ertz got a late kind of some garbage time points as well as Kyler Murray. It's week 1. Don't panic. They will have better opportunities going forward. They were in a bad game strip. So,
Juju had some yards, but not much.
yeah. And remember, for fantasy, it doesn't matter the win-loss. If Kyler Murray gets you 25 points and they lose by 23, he still got you 25 points, and that's what you're caring about. But the Chiefs 1-0. The Cardinals losing, going to 0-1. Next up, also in the Chiefs division, Chargers and the Raiders. Chargers winning 24-19. The loss of Keenan Allen did not stop them from winning. Austin Eckler disappearing in this game. Just a real bad effort from him.
Ending up on the milk carton from the game.
Yeah. Devontae Adams is still very good at football. If you didn't realize it, he's going to be just fine without Aaron Rodgers. He was, I think, the wide receiver 3 on the week, behind Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson, who we'll get to here in a second. He's still going to be very good. Josh Jacobs got a lot of the running work, so if you drafted him, you might have gotten a steal as a starting running back there. I wouldn't be too worried about the Mike Williams bad game. He's going to disappear at times. He's still got a long season to go. He's probably got a pretty good matchup tomorrow night, so you can probably play him and be pretty happy with the result tomorrow. Raiders, though, had an opportunity in this game, let it squander. Chargers get revenge for the end of last season. Justin Herbert was normal. I would say it was about his average game. Nothing spectacular, but didn't hurt you if you had him. All right, next up, this one was another fairly sizable upset. Minnesota Vikings 23-7 win over the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers was terrible. Christian Watson dropping a surefire 75-yard touchdown on the first offensive play, and that set the tone the rest of the way. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones looked very good. Dillon got a touchdown, so that helped his fantasy numbers immensely. However, Dalvin Cook a little disappointing. Adam Thielen a little disappointing because Justin Jefferson, 184 yards and 2 touchdowns on a ton of catches. Fantasy receiver number 1 exiting week number 1. There were MVP chance. A wide receiver's never won MVP, but if he can keep that performance up, he's going to get 2,000 yards and the MVP pretty easily. But this new offense looked pretty good for the Vikings. The Packers, again, week 1 looked like utter garbage. They get the exact fix they need for next week, and that's a game against the Chicago Bears. Hopefully for the Packers, they'll have Allen Lazard, who was practicing. That did hurt them, not having the number 1 receiver. It's not Devontae Adams, but Allen Lazard is a solid player. Losing him is a big deal, especially when you don't have a lot of wide receiver help. Romeo Doubs, though, led the wide receiver crew in catches. It wasn't Christian Watson, wasn't Randall Cobb. So keep that in mind. If he's on waivers, it could be an interesting stash or pickup down the line of Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, definitely. It was a WRTE by committee with that. You see how many different targets there were for that team. Yikes.
Yeah, kind of a bad day if you weren't a Green Bay Packers running back or Justin Jefferson in that one. All right, next up, it's your Bucs. We've already kind of covered this one a little bit. The Cowboys looked bad and then had injuries happen. 19-3 win for the Buccaneers. The Bucs offense really never got going. 4 field goals in the first half and then a touchdown to Mike Evans late in the second.
They didn't need to get going with how horrible the Cowboys were, because as bad as the Bucs offense was, I kept wondering, like, okay, when are the Cowboys going to get going? That would be never. Good.
Yeah.
God, what an awful game.
Yeah, Zeke Elliott was fine, but he didn't get enough opportunities. Chris Godwin was actually off to a good start before getting injured. Mike Evans with the touchdown. Julio Jones looked pretty good. Got some end-around running work. Leonard Fournette actually was fantastic in this game. Unfortunately for the Cowboys, there was just nothing good to speak of. And then the hand injury on back-to-back surprise high fives from Shaq. What's his name? Shaq Barrett. I want to say Shaq Griffin, but I know it's not right. Shaq Barrett, back-to-back surprise high fives on the pass. You come through, you hit the hand, did it twice, eventually broke something in the thumb region. I don't know if it was ligament or bone, but out for multiple weeks, to say the least. So Cowboys beat down on the field. Only team in that division to not get a win in week number 1. and lose their all-pro starting quarterback. Still
That
short
they just
without Michael Gallup.
cracked
So
up the Brinks truck for.
yeah, so not a good situation for Dallas. They could easily fall out of this playoff race here pretty quickly. I had them missing the playoffs, so I feel a lot better about that call now than I did a week ago when they had Dak Prescott. The Bucs were always going to be a tough matchup. This is one of those where you could have thrown out week one. You could have said, hey, the Bucs have a good defense. They struggled, didn't play in the preseason, whatever. But once you lose Dak Prescott, all of a sudden that goes, well, even if they get into rhythm, it's a rhythm with Cooper Rush. Are we really going to say Cooper Rush is going to lead this team to a playoff? No, I think they run the risk of being the bottom team in this division right now.
Yeah, I know that. I saw a blurb of was it McCartney has a list of all the available quarterbacks in the NFL, and I'm going, who is that right now with Garoppolo just being inked the deal? Who is actually freaking available? Are they going to press Antonio Brown into service as a quarterback? I mean, what? I mean, no one's available.
Here's the thing. They could go after Gardner Minshew, but he's in division. They can go after Taylor Heineke, but he's in division. They're not giving him up. They could go to San Francisco and say, hey, we would really like to get Jimmy G to back us up. And they go, did you see Trey Lance in week one? We have some concern. We want to hold on to Garoppolo.
Just a little bit.
I mean, you can go to a team like Miami and see if you can wrangle away Teddy Bridgewater, maybe. But there's not a whole lot of good situations for maybe Sam Darnold out of Carolina. I mean, I'm trying to think of places where there's two viable quarterbacks, Jordan Love out of Green Bay, but it's only a temporary thing because Dak Prescott, if he comes back in 4 weeks, if you can go 2-2 in those 4 weeks, 1-3, okay, let's say 1-3, you're 1-4, and the back half of the schedule is a lot easier. So maybe you can get lucky and get back into it, but if he's out 8 weeks, I don't think it really matters. I think you're done.
I just saw that they said available quarterbacks. I'm going, who the frick is available?
Yeah, at this time, it's not good. And unfortunately, two of the better backup options that you can get that would be clear backups are in division. They're not going to trade.
The NFL is the real life example right now of the 16-team league waiver wire.
Yeah, that's brutal. I'll pull it up so we can go over some names. But let's go quickly over to the last game of the week. The reason I am wearing a Seattle Seahawks jersey, the Seattle Seahawks upset the Denver Broncos 17-16 with the Geno chants raining from Lumen Field. It was absurd.
This game also gave me my my final thought that I won't spoil.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, by the way, waiver wires for quarterbacks in the 16-team league. Jared Goff, Jacoby Brissett, Geno Smith, who did look very good, didn't have a great fantasy game.
Simba, who I hear in the background.
Yeah, Simba's outside. He's just very loud. Yeah, Simba, we hear you. Cooper Rush and Joe Flacco. And then Taysom Hill in Yahoo still has quarterback eligibility if you want to go that route. Other than that, it's all backup. So that's the 16. Oh, Drew Lock. Drew Lock, another name you can probably go after week number 1 and say, hey, what do you want for Drew Lock?
Lock it up.
Yeah, I think you're better off with Cooper Rush, though. Broncos.
So you might want to rush after that pick rather than locking it up.
Broncos didn't look good in the first half. Really, really struggled. Didn't get the wide receivers involved. Javonte Williams looked fantastic, though.
Struggling.
Yeah, we'll cover the Broncos first. Javonte Williams looked very good, very heavily involved in the passing game. So if you have him in fantasy, PPR, gold mine. Standard, not so much, but PPR, a lot of value there. Unfortunately for him and Melvin Gordon, a goal line fumble that cost him getting points on the board because you lose by 1. You take a field goal there, all of a sudden you should win. Cortland Sutton, a decent performance after a slow start, and Jerry Jeudy, a long touchdown pass. The Seahawks, Will Dissly, and another tight end whose name is escaping me because, well, I've never heard of him before that.
I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you know that guy that you've never heard of? Yeah.
Yeah, is this like in spring training when they have minor league guy underneath the name of because they have no idea who the frick it is.
Yeah. But Geno Smith starts 13 of 13, 17 of 18 at halftime. Not a huge yardage game. DK Metcalf, Taylor Lockett were very, very poor performers this week. Metcalf with a lost fumble. Rashad Penny actually looked like he had some juice, but just not a huge finish. Also with a fumble at some point in that game that was not lost. So a little bit sloppy, but Russell Wilson goes back to Seattle and loses. And then the controversy at the end of the game, 4th and 5 with a minute left. They let the clock run down to zeros to opt into taking a 64-yard field goal.
That about pretty much sums up
the entire country was like, call the timeout. Talk this over. Go. You're going to go for it. Call the timeout. Talk. What are you doing? Why are you letting the clock run down? And then when it got to like 30 seconds, I'm like, oh no, they're burning clock intentionally to kick a field goal. This is a bad idea. Now the field goal had a shot that had the distance missed just off to the left, upright, and they lose by 1. So McManus had the leg. Nathaniel Hackett has to have a lot of reasons for doing what he did. The Broncos, though, with that disappointing loss, of course, the Chargers and Chiefs both winning. One of those is going to win in theory on tomorrow night's game that we'll pick here in a second. So the Broncos going to be facing an early uphill battle. The Seattle Seahawks, the only team in the NFC West to get a win in week number 1. This is the one last year we thought maybe 4 playoff teams would be from. So only one win in week number 1 for the NFC West is what you would call a little bit of surprise. Joel's picks were 8-7-1. I was 5-10-1. I'm going to just say this number at the bottom, this 11-2 fantasy record was what I was really going for. The wins, not so much on the picks. So as we have established, we're very bad at picking. And now we're going to pick Thursday Night Football. The Los Angeles Chargers going to Kansas City to face the Chiefs, the 1-0 battle in division. Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, 2 of the best young quarterbacks in the league right now, along with Josh Allen, I would say is probably about the list. And Excel wants to not work correctly, so that's fun. 4 fantasy options. Again, no Keenan Allen. So I think Mike Williams becomes a must start unless you are just loaded at wide receiver all the way down to your flex. Austin Eckler is going to be in your lineup.
So Ryan loves Excel and the NFL stats on the website tonight.
Yes. At least this one eventually worked. The NFL stats did not. So Justin Herbert going to be in the starting lineup no matter what. Austin Eckler as well. I think you want to play Mike Williams this week. He usually has a good game against Kansas City, but not a must start, but he's going to be a viable option. Kansas City, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, sneaky good flex play. He was the running back 5, I believe, last week in standard scoring at the very least. I know he was number 5. I don't know what he was in PPR, but very good week from him. A little bit sneaky. Of course, Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce in your lineup. And then that 4-headed monster at wide receiver, take your pick. If you have a gut feeling on Hardman or Juju or something like that, you can play him. But I still want to see something come out of this before we make a decision full time.
Yeah, as much as I loved Herbert and I love the Chargers, it's very, very, very hard and tough to pick against the Chiefs at home. I've got to go with Kansas City.
Honestly, if we'd have had to pick this game last week, I think I would have taken the Chargers. Because the vibes on Kansas City, losing Tyreek Hill and all of that, there was worry that this offense was going to fall apart. But seeing what they did against the Cardinals, and given the Chargers defense is better than Arizona's, I'm not going to pretend it's not. Seeing what they did against Arizona made me think this offense might actually be more dangerous with a spread approach to passing the ball outside of Travis Kelce. You don't have to just shut down Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. You have to shut down Kelce and then 4 other very viable options at the wide receiver position, not to mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco out of the backfield. Jerick McKinnon looked pretty good. So a lot of good options. Pacheco is also, if he's on your waivers, probably a stashable commodity for you. Not necessarily playable now, but God forbid Clyde Edwards-Helaire's go down. All of a sudden, Pacheco could be a top 5 option at the running back position. We're both on Kansas City. Home teams on Thursday Night Football tend to do very well. This is in Kansas City, so we'll see how that goes. Anyways, because Simba's losing his damn mind, we're going to go to final thoughts, and we'll start with Joel.
My final thought just happens to be probably one of the best quotes of the entire freaking week, and this comes from the Broncos-Seahawks game. One, Geno Smith with the quote of the year. They wrote me off. I didn't write back, though, and that
Yep.
is my final thought.
Yeah, kudos to Geno Smith. Just a reiteration of the final thought I previewed earlier. Do not panic. It is only week 1. I've had somebody in the Dynasty League say, my whole team's for sale. Thank you, Aaron Rodgers, and thank you, Tom Brady, for ruining my year. It's week 1, man. I tried to go and get Dalvin Cook from him. He wasn't selling that much. I tried to give him Cam Akers and somebody else that wasn't very good for I can't remember the other guy for Dalvin Cook. He did not go. Oh, Isaiah Likely from the Ravens, the tight end that got a lot of hype and then had a goose egg last week. I tried to trade him 2 players that got 0 points in week 1 for Dalvin Cook, and that went about as well as you would think. He also got a pick back in, so he should have been fine. But yeah, don't panic. It is only week 1. The draft does not win or lose your league. It's what you do from week 1 until the playoffs and into the playoffs that makes the difference. It's the roster moves. It's the start-sit decisions. It is all of that. So if you are 0-1, hey, it's only 1 week. If you're 1-0, it's only 1 week. If you're 11-2 on the week, it's only 1 week. You have to do it more than once. So, if you're 1-0, hopefully you go 2-0 unless you're playing me. Then I hope you go 1-1. Joel, I think you're in that same boat. So don't panic. Make smart moves. Don't drop guys like Kadarius Toney. Here's a good example. Kadarius Toney played 7 snaps, but he looked good the 2 touches he had. He was coming back from a hamstring injury. In the 16-teamer, I could have went out of my way and said, hey, I'm going to go try and get Curtis Samuel, or I'm going to try and go get somebody else to drop Kadarius Toney. I didn't do that because, 1, I don't need to. And 2, Kadarius Toney has such massive upside. If he is just recovering from injury, and in 2 weeks he is full strength, the number 1 guy again, that's going to be pretty good. There were no major you have to go after this guy off the waivers hard this week, so that I think that's still in play. I think that guy's still coming. So maybe in 2 weeks, if Kadarius Toney doesn't come up and somebody finally does explode onto the scene, that's the guy you go for. But don't panic. It's only week 1. There are bigger things to worry about, like the rail strike that's going to ruin my life. Anywho, if you don't know, you just Google it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah.
Yes, my day job involves trains, so this week's been so much fun. Also, side note, shot a personal best at disc golf literally right before filming this today. So, yay me, -3.
Yeah, at least it's not as bad as the when they were going on football and they were talking about the passing of Her Majesty, and they cut right back to the fact that we've been waiting for this, and it looks like, even though they're not, looks like they're cheering the death of the Queen.
Yeah.
You're going, maybe not exactly good camera work there, kids.
Yeah, RIP to the Queen, and of course the 9/11 remembrances over the weekend were very nice as well. Got to make mention of both of those because, at least the Queen's passing is major current news. Everybody always had the memes that she was immortal, would never go, and she's gone. Far too young at the age of 96.
Yeah, it's weird when you're watching the proclamation and the installation of King Charles, and you're going, okay, it's no longer Queen Elizabeth anymore.
It just feels wrong. It just feels wrong calling anybody else king or queen over there. But it's something you get used to. Give it time. But unfortunately for Queen Elizabeth, only 96.
Yeah, I know there was one, if I can, a cool story where apparently the Queen and her bodyguard were on the mountain top somewhere, and a couple ended up stopping them, got the picture, and the Queen absolutely pretended just to be a normal person, not, what are you doing up here? Didn't identify who she was, and they got a picture and everything. And so the Queen was talking to her bodyguard. She says, I can't wait. I would love to be the fly on the wall for that couple to get back, show somebody the picture, and like, oh my God, that was the Queen.
Yeah, I know there was another story because it was joked about with the wedding I officiated 2 weeks ago about, inviting the Queen to the wedding because she has randomly shown up to weddings she's invited to. So, that's the kind of person she was.
That would be a hell of an attendee.
Yeah. Oh, hey, just so you know, I know you sent it as a joke, but the Queen of England is here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. That would have made my sermon very, very interesting. If I'd have been like, greetings, family, friends, treasured guests, the Queen, Uncle David's. Yeah, why is the Queen here? But yeah. Anyways, R.I.P. to Queen Elizabeth, of course.
Why,
96.
why are all these guards around?
I thought this was supposed to be a small affair. Why are there all the guys in the black suits hiding in the bushes? And what can't I say now? Because now I feel like I'm going to get shot. Anyway, yeah, that's our time. I'm flying Ryan Gilchrist along with,
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
and we'll be back on Friday. We'll cover what happens tomorrow night, fantasy and on the field, the game, and then we'll make our probably terrible week 2 picks.
Make more crappy picks. Yay.
Yeah, it can't be. I think 5, 10, and 1 is the worst week we've had, and I own that very well. We do a league pick'em for the League of Winning or the Little Two series up here. I was 4-1 in that. I had one less game in 5 opportunities than I had in 16 NFL games.
That's the one time when you wish we could do sound bites where we, oh no, we suck again.
Yeah, we got to figure out how to get those sound bites in the Stream Deck to work, because there's some stuff I have in mind that we could do it. Anyways, that's our time. We'll be back